ladies and gentlemen. We're actually extremely honored as the Department of Labor to make an input at this very important session this morning and to maybe contribute to the debate as part of our opening remarks. A lot has been said already on migration and the importance thereof. And certainly from the Department of Labor's perspective, we have some very specific insights that we would like to share with the seminar. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, South Africa has not stopped receiving migrants from neighboring countries. And this is happening in greater numbers as we speak. And we also find that the types of migrants that we are receiving into the country is also becoming more and more diverse. And traditionally, labor migrants have been coming from countries around South Africa, but what we've actually been seeing is that recently they are coming from countries further and further afield. And this is brought about by a number of changes in the labor market, both locally and internationally. We know that the rise of globalization, the collapse of apartheid in South Africa, as we've heard some history on that, the economic and political and social crisis in other parts of Africa all results in increased migration being experienced within the South African labor market as well. We also know that historically, labor migrants was concentrated largely in the South African mining industry. But over the last 10 years, we've seen that the majority of migrants that are coming from neighbor countries are coming into other sectors within the South African labor market, and this includes the hospitality and tourism industry. It also includes the private household sector, which is commonly known as the domestic sector. And we have a phenomenon in South Africa as well, where we also have now what we call car and security guards. Okay, we're increasingly seeing this sector growing, and I think what you actually see is a very important phenomenon in the local labor market, and that relates to the informal sector that often we speak about, but often know very little about as well. Hopefully, during this discussions and debates, we'll get more insight into this. And particularly from the Department of Labor, Public Employment Services, there's a number of reasons why we would like to understand the sector better, and I will share that with you in a few minutes. Now, within the Department of Labor, we also have, and we are the custodians of labor law in the country. What you find is that majority of the labor migrants that are actually coming into the country are often vulnerable and open to abuse, as many of them do not have work permits and are forced to work in circumstances where there are low-paying jobs and do not really meet the criteria of decent work. Conversely, every South African and every person that's actually coming into the country legally is protected by the vast array of labor laws that are operated by the Department of Labor. Skilled migrants and properly registered foreign nationals are able to enjoy all the benefits that South Africa has to offer in terms of the protection, in terms of the labor law, and all the policies and frameworks that are there. But those that are outside of this framework and are in the country without the proper authority, they are unable to access the benefits that are offered by the very well-developed labor framework that's within the country. Now, we also know that within South Africa, the certain categories of non-citizens is also protected constitutionally. And we know that those with permanent residences, refugees, asylum seekers, all have the right to work in South Africa with no restriction. Now, within the Department of Labor, one of the important things that the Public Employment Service does is that it makes recommendations for the granting of work visas. So in other words, those people that actually want to enter the country, they actually have to apply for a work visa at the Department of Home Affairs. One of the conditions for granting that work visa is a recommendation that comes from the Public Employment Service of the Department of Labor. Now, just to give you a sense, that between 2013 and 2015, the department has received more than 33,000 applications for work visas from foreign citizens. That actually tells you that there's a growing need for us to recognize that a lot more people are actually coming into the country, and they're also coming through the formal channel. Because these applications that we received have been formal applications that are coming via the the created structures. Now, what we also find is that a large percentage of these migrants are actually coming into specific sectors. What we've, from the information that we have within the department's database, about 61% of the applicants actually go to the agricultural sector. And and as general farm workers working on various farms within the country. And they take on different kinds of work, like general farm workers. We have unique kinds of disciplines in South Africa, like sheep shearers, cattle handlers, and they come from various different parts of Africa. This includes Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Lesotho, Namibia, Botswana. And over the quarter of these workers also come from the construction sector. And they come in as engineers, project managers, artisans, mechanics, and we also get builders that come in from Korea, the United Kingdom, Germany, India, Thailand, Mozambique, the USA, and the United Arab Emirates. Now, this is just some of the work visas that we have processed within the Department of Labor, and these numbers that I've been reading out to you just gives you a sense of the kind of categories of workers that are coming into the country. And also we know that it was mentioned earlier on that the ICT sector is a very important sector and technology seems to be redefining work. We find that about 6% of the migrants also come into the ICT sector. They come in as IT specialists, system engineers, managers, technicians, network developers, and they come in mainly from India, China. And we also have communication experts coming in from France, Denmark, Finland, Greece, Japan, Poland. And from the hospitality sector, we have people coming in from Thailand, chefs from Thailand mainly, and we also get some healthcare workers coming in from Cuba, etc. So within the Department of Labor, our experience has been that there is this very interesting information that's emerging as to how we profile the migrant workers that are actually coming in. Even though it is a fairly new process, we still have a process that is unfolding where we are able to categorize in which sectors we are actually experiencing the migration occurring. Now, as has also been mentioned earlier on, and I'm sure during your deliberations you're going to find this increasingly true, one of the principal reasons for the migration is the huge skills mismatch that's actually occurring between what the employers are demanding and the skills that are available. Now, as technology advances and as business improvement processes has reduced the demand for low-skilled labor in many economies, factories have more machines and they have fewer people. And you find that the routine tasks have become automated. And what is happening is that there's a displacement of low-skilled workers. And what you actually see within the public employment services of the Department of Labor is that we have a large volume of work seekers registering. We have a record of just about 4 million work seekers seeking employment. Employers are registering about 110,000 job opportunities, but we can actually place very few workers into these opportunities simply because of the skills mismatch that's actually occurring. So that gives us a very important topic that we need to deal with, where we actually have to find ways in which we train, reskill, and find ways, in creative ways, policies and standards as to how we then absorb this growing level of low-skilled workers that are actually emerging as a result of various technological advances that are occurring and the increasing demands that are coming from employers as well. Our experience as public employment services also tells us that those that are graduates and that are artisans and have technical skills are readily employed, while those with low levels of skills become structurally unemployed in the labor market, and they are becoming increasingly dependent on the social security systems of the country. Within the Department of Labor, we provide an unemployment insurance benefit as well to these workers, and of course there's continuous need for improvement to make sure that there's continuing income support to those that actually cannot support themselves. We know that the unemployment insurance system in South Africa is for a limited basis only, and is also contributory based. And therefore there are large parts of people that actually remain unemployed do not have lots of income support. So therefore, us understanding the environment and the benefits that come through migration and that can come from having strengthened policies is very, very important to us. We also know that while there is the skill shortages that we speak of, we also know that the migrants that actually come into the country play a very important role. Therefore, it will be very important to understand and to see the outcome of your project, to actually understand exactly what contribution is being made. As we know that within South Africa we have a large informal sector that's often referred to, but we need to understand what is the exact contribution of that sector in various ways, in terms of the human capital contribution that they make, also in terms of what levels of revenue is untapped in that particular sector. It will be interesting to understand these dynamics. In Africa, we also have a very interesting advantage in that the working population is fairly young. The average age of a working person in Africa is about 25. And this will be a major contributor to the global workforce. And I think it's very important that we mention this, because it's not only about migrants coming into the country, but what about our own citizens migrating to other countries to also contribute with their skills levels as well. Now, whilst South Africa is embarking on this massive process of education, training, and re-educating skills as a result of past inefficiencies and deficiencies, there is also a very important need to understand the contribution that migrants fill in actually providing for the skills needs of the country. It is also necessary for us to raise the demand for low-level skills. And I think this is where it's kind of an ironical situation, where as technology grows and there's more and more demand for high levels of skills, it's precisely by employing these high-level skills that we create opportunities for low-level skills. And I think the two are interrelated and interdependent. Now, what is very important for us is that having effective migration policies that set minimum labor standards is essential to facilitate equitable movement of the labor force across borders, and also in places where there are excesses labor, to actually move them to places of deficit. And I think it was mentioned in the opening remarks as well that having a labor policy, a labor migration policy, is very, very important, and that will actually help to set some of these minimum standards. As you know, South Africa has got a very well-developed system of labor laws, and it continuously strives to comply with all international conventions on labor matters. Now, we also know that the debate on migration will continue and will become more and more relevant as technology changes the nature of work and as companies redefine how they do their different tasks. The type of skills that employers are requiring is continuously evolving as technology evolves. And therefore, the shortage of workers with the right skills and with the right knowledge could actually hamper growth within the economy. And therefore, it's very important for us to actually understand within the context of what are the needs of the labor market and appropriately develop those skills and actually make sure that we can also receive the appropriate skills from outside to actually develop the local resources. Now, we also know that within South Africa and our neighboring countries, there's geographic mismatches between the jobs that exist outside of South Africa and within the country. And what we actually see is that there's a continuous stream of low-skilled workers into the country, hoping to get better opportunities within South Africa. And we actually find that one of the difficult things that we have is actually trying to track and trace exactly which sectors these different people are actually going into, so that we can provide the appropriate policies, the appropriate interventions to make sure that they do not slip into levels of poverty and abuse. Now, also critical to the debate is the untapped resources that are in the labor market. Female workers is another source of labor that is not fully tapped. And we think that by upping participation, we can also help to reduce the skills, the gaps and mismatches that are actually existing. We also know that from the stats that we have within public employment services that the largest part of the unemployed sector is within the youth. And it is very important for us to have policies and programs to address the growing problem of youth unemployment, because if this is left unaddressed, it could really result in various social and economic difficulties. And we also know that within South Africa, job creation is a very important priority that's embodied in the National Development Plan. And very specific provision has been made in this medium-term strategic framework of government to allow access, easy access, of critical skills in the country for the purposes of filling the skills gaps and also for the purposes of training and growing the increasing skills within the country. Now, the discussions and debates on labor migration will continue to gain momentum all over the world. And I think it's very, very important that this seminar actually takes place so that it can make a very important contribution to the policy outcomes within the departments. Certainly, within the Department of Labor, the Public Employment Services Act has been recently promulgated by Parliament, and we are just awaiting implementation of this piece of legislation. So there's a very ripe environment for us to put some leading practices in place as a result of the new legal opportunities that are presenting us. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.